Hey everybody, I'm Holly, aka the Scientology Geek, and welcome back to another data series video. As I said before, I only have one video left on the OCA, so we're going to cover that next time after the unboxing. I think I might have finished them all, I'm not sure. Either way, I did put out the interview with William Burt Jr. He's an independent Scientologist, and I hope you guys watch it. It seems like it's doing really well, and a lot of you are actually really interested in it. So I want to thank you guys for watching. And without further ado, let us get started into the 12th policy letter of the data series from the 5th of July, 1970, called How to Find and Establish an Ideal Scene.
In order to detect, handle, or remedy situations, one has to be able to understand and work out several things. These are defining the ideal scene itself, detect without error or guess any departure on it, find out why a departure occurred, and work out a means of reverting back to the ideal scene. In order to resolve a situation fully, one has to get the real reason why a departure from the ideal scene occurred. What has changed or what changed is the same question. That change is the root of departures comes from a series of plant experiments I conducted. The type of experimentation was undertaken to study cellular life behavior and reaction to see if it was a different type of life. It isn't. The experiments themselves were later repeated in various universities and were the subject of much press for them over the world.
I'm wondering if this is any way related to the picture of himself hooking an e-meter up to like a tomato plant.
In setting up conditions of growth, I observed that plants on various occasions greatly declined suddenly. In each case, I was able to trace the last major change that had occurred and correct it. Changes made in temperature, water volume, humidity, ventilation greatly affected the plants in terms of wilt, decreased growth rate, increase in parasites, etc. When the change was isolated and the condition reverted to that occurring during the previous healthy period, a recovery would occur. At first glance, this may seem obvious, yet in actual practice it was not easy to do. Gardeners' records would omit vital data or alter importance or drop out time, etc. A gardener might seek to cover up for himself or a fellow worker. He tended to make himself right and would enter falsehoods or reassurance that was a falsehood into the analysis. A new gardener would seem to affect the plants greatly, and one could build a personality influence theory on this until one found that being untrained in the procedure used, he would enter even more outpoints than usual. At such a juncture, one would of course train the gardener, but that didn't locate what had been changed, and one had to locate that to get the plants to recover. The conditions in use were extreme forcing conditions anyway, and lapse of duty was very apparent. 16-foot hothouse American corn from seeds usually furnishing 5-foot stalks.
I'm trying to figure out if he means stalks, Stalks.
43 tomatoes to the truss, where 5 is more usual, where the demands being met. So any change showed up at once. The fact of change itself was a vital point as well. One discovery was that life does best in a near optimum constancy, meaning that change just as changed is usually harmful to plant life.
There are always going to be challenges to face, and they're not always going to be able to be changed easily. Plants, it's different. You can have an out point in growing plants, and usually you can fix it. The real issue is being able to transfer that thought pattern to a large organization or group of people. So why he thinks he can do this, I don't understand.
The fact of isolating change in the environment as the sole harmful cause was one discovery. That one had to isolate the change in order to obtain full recovery was another discovery. Change itself was not bad, but in this experimental series, conditions were set as optimum and the beneficial changes had already been made with remarkable results. Thus one was observing change from the optimum. This would be the same thing as departures from the ideal scene. The action was always observe the decline, locate the exact change which had been made, revert the change. A return to the near ideal scene would occur if one were maintaining the ideal scene meanwhile.
Alright, we're probably going to finish off at departure.
The ideal scene. There are two scenes. A, the ideal scene. B, the existing scene. These, of course, can be wide apart. How does one know the ideal scene? At first thought, it would be very difficult for a person not an expert to know the ideal scene. For years, certain quote unquote authoritarian people in the field of mental healing fought with lies and great guile to obscure the fact that the ideal seen in mental healing can be known to anyone. Such imprisoned and tortured and murdered human beings with the excuse that they themselves were the only experts. It takes 12 years to make a psychiatrist. Expert skill is required to kill a patient. The existing scene these quote experts made was a slaughterhouse for asylums and the insanity and crime statistics soaring. They fought like maniacs to obscure the ideal scene and hired and coerced an army of agents, reporters, officials, and such to smash anyone who sought to present the ideal scene or ways to attain it. Indeed, it was a world gone mad, with even the police and governments hoodwinked by these experts.
Now, I will agree, again, that older ways of psychiatry and psychology could have been brutal. They were brutal. Not all of them were brutal, but some of them were. You got your ice pick lobotomies, you had your electroshock therapy, which still exists nowadays, but it's far less frequent. But the problem with it is that with time comes change. And it seems that Hubbard cannot get the idea that psychology or psychiatry could ever change. And with that, Scientologists don't think it could ever change. So they're still stuck in this whole ice pick lobotomy, electroconvulsive therapy, all these horrible torture methods that were done back in the 50s and 40s without actually realizing what psychology has adapted and how it's evolved nowadays.
Yet any citizen knew the ideal scene had he not been so propaganda frightened by the existing scene. By constantly pounding in the naturalness of an existing scene consisting of madness, crime, torture, seizure, and murder, these mad experts put the ideal scene so far from reach that it appeared incredible. It was so bad a situation that anyone proposing the ideal scene was actively resisted. Yet the ideal scene is so easy to state that any citizen could have stated it at any time, and often believed it was occurring. The ideal scene of an asylum would be people recovering in a calm atmosphere, restored to any previous ability, emerging competent and confident.
The problem is, even with psychiatric institutions nowadays, people are not going to be restored. There's not always a way to completely cure a psychiatric problem. There's ways to treat it, which can help, but it doesn't mean that these people are completely cured like Hubbard seems to think that these people can be. Because if we look at the introspection rundown, that is just a whole shit fest.
The ideal scene in the society would be probably a safe environment wherein one could happily make his way through life. Of course, the technology of the mind was the missing data. But the experts in charge of that sector of life paid out hard cash to hoods to prevent any such technology developing, a matter fully documented.
And there's the conspiracy mindsets.
The gap between the ideal scene and the existing scene can be very wide, and in any endeavor, elements exist that tend to prevent a total closure between the two. However, approached on a gradient with skill and determination, it can be done.
Alright, so we got 4, 5, 6 pages left. Alright, so I'm going to keep pumping these videos out. We're going to pick up on departure next time. But yeah, I'm not going to go into any other subjects until all the data series videos for this specific policy letter is out. So it's probably going to go on for the next 2 weeks. Or next 2 videos in a row. I don't really got much to say today. Things have just been hectic. It's been crazy. And I want to thank you guys for sticking along. It means a lot to have you as an audience. I'm almost at 200 subscribers. I know that seems like such a low number, but seeing people interested in my content and slowly going up and up and up and up, I love it. I love knowing that you people are interested. And I guess all I can do is keep putting out the content that you guys are interested in. Now, mind you, I know that these videos, these reading videos, aren't as popular as my normal content when it comes to, like, interviews and stuff like that. Those tend to get the most views, whereas these readings tend to be the least. But I don't want to get rid of these. My goal with this channel was to expose Scientology doctrine, and I'm still going to do that. So if you don't like it, don't watch. If you like it, watch it. I don't care. You watch what you want to watch. If that's the interviews, fine. If that's the readings, fine. If it's both, whatever. Thanks. Like if you like the video, dislike if you don't. I don't really care. Comment with your feedback or questions, good, bad, or sideways, and subscribe to be kept up to date on future content. I'll talk to all of you later. See you.